Hey everyone, I'm Ian McCarthy of Lifting for Life and No Bullshit Bodybuilding, and welcome back to the Lifting for Life Q&A series. After last night's video, which I was really pleased with, and more importantly, the response to it seems to have been overwhelmingly positive, I'm very aware that it was a really long video and that some people might have liked it but still found it really long, or might not have watched it at all because of how long it was. I want to bring you a much shorter video today answering one of your questions. So, this question comes from Big Papa Oso on Instagram. It's clearly his legal name. And he asks, can you post a YouTube video in regard to your arm training and reasoning behind daily training? So for those of you who are unaware, I've been talking a lot on other social media platforms, particularly Instagram, about the daily arm training I've been doing over the past, nearly a month now. And first of all, I want to note that if you don't follow me on my other platforms, I would encourage you to do that. All of the information is below. If you don't follow me there, obviously you're totally free to do that, but a lot will likely get missed because not everything is going to make it into a YouTube video. So, the reasoning behind this daily arm training I've been doing is, interestingly, and this will make more sense if you watched last night's video about bro splits, one of the things that happened in me very aggressively shifting from years and years of bro splits to first daily full body training and then upper lower, and variations of that is my arm training, my direct arm training got lost to a large extent. And I want to note, I think it's very important to note that I don't think that is inherent to those splits. It was a function of how I was approaching them, and there's an additional big confounder in my case. I'm always a little bit uncomfortable talking about this, not because I have a problem talking about it fundamentally, but I don't want to give the impression that I'm just bullshitting. This is some excuse I use for not training properly, but I do suffer from major depression, and thus there are periods where that so reduces my work capacity that a lot of what I want to do in the gym doesn't get done. Now, in the context of full body and upper lower training, to a large extent what that has meant this year is direct arm training didn't get done on nearly the level it was getting done when I had dedicated arm days. So I think about 2 months I really became very much aware of the fact that my arms had actually shrunk. I mean, literally they were smaller. And I don't recall really doing any. Again, I became aware of the issue, didn't really make a change at the time, not out of laziness or anything like that, but I simply didn't decide to prioritize it yet. But then 3.5, 4 weeks ago when I started the cut that I'm doing now, I had the thought, okay, maybe I can pursue leaning out, and I wanted to deal with this arms thing, so let me just do it now. So it's largely an experiment to see, okay, what happens if I train my arms every day, and this is happening in the context of me being in an energy deficit, so it also allows me to answer the question of, can you gain muscle when you're in a deficit and so on. And I realize that there's this issue of, well, if I had the muscle, I'm gaining it back, so it's not a perfect answer to the question, but I felt it was a worthwhile endeavor. And it's been extremely effective. My arms have gotten noticeably much bigger, not so much stronger in this period, but definitely bigger. And to speak to the specifics a little bit, I think if I were going to really lay out everything, a video like this wouldn't be, perhaps if I had a whiteboard and were to write it all out, that might work, but I think something like a blog post or a lengthy post on Facebook would be the way to go with that. But roughly what I've done is I started with a 6-day-a-week, lower, upper. Again, I don't often take rest days, so sometimes that ends up being 7 days. Sometimes what will happen is I won't be able to get through one workout, so then it's 6 days of training spread over 7. But pretty generic, lower, upper, 6 days of training per week, hitting every body part 3 days a week. And then I placed on top of that foundation daily arm training. Now, I'll speak to the upper days first, even though my training week starts with a lower day. On the upper days, I do the bench press, the pull-ups, lateral raises, etc. Nothing really unconventional there. And I regard that as the kind of core of my upper session. And then I do arms. Now, I'm totally aware of the fact that when you do bench press, you are effectively training your triceps. When I do an underhand pull down, I am effectively training my biceps. But very much in my mind, I have all the upper body stuff other than arms, and then I have arms. I really almost think of it as a workout after the workout. So all of this, the chest training, the back, etc., is important to me, but there's also an element of, this is what I'm getting through to get to this arm training that I really want to hammer. So that, not to speak additionally to all of this other work, because that's simply not the focus of this discussion, that arm work consists of typically 2 exercises, 2 single joint exercises for triceps and 2 single joint exercises for biceps, 8 to 12 reps, very close to failure, favoring exercises recently like rope pushdowns, seated dumbbell overhead extensions, alternating dumbbell hammer curls, and 45-degree incline alternating supination curls with dumbbells. So what is the thought behind this? The thought is, okay, on these days I'm already doing the heavier work. I don't do genuinely heavy work. In the sense that a power lifter would mean, or someone who's even just generally strength oriented, I don't do heavy work, but the heavier work I do is already happening on those upper days. So my thought is, really from a recovery perspective, it makes sense to me. I find it intuitive to cluster all that together. And so what that means is I'll do the heavier bench press, the heavier pull downs, etc., and then the heavier direct biceps and tricep stuff. And part of that is I train my biceps and triceps at longer muscle lengths, meaning things like those overhead extensions where the triceps are going to, gosh, I don't want to risk being wrong about this, but I think that the triceps would reach maximal length there. Similarly, in the case of an incline curl where your shoulder's actually hyperextended, the biceps are lengthened at the shoulder joint and at the elbow. So why do that? Well, I had a discussion with Brett Contreras about this about a month ago. Gosh, really immediately prior to me starting this, I think. And he talked about using a similar approach, just generally, where he'll have 3 really hard workouts a week, but he still trains on those other days. But what he does on those other days is he trains at shorter muscle lengths because that induces less muscle damage and is easier to recover from. And this was a tremendously eye-opening discussion for me. I found it an ingenious concept because what that allows someone to do is really hit it hard. Now in his case, I think he's doing full body sessions, but really hit it hard 3 days a week, but then still go in and elevate that ceiling for the maximum amount of dietary protein that can be used to synthesize muscle protein at any one time, but still recover. That's what they're almost, it would be going too far to call them active recovery days, but they're lighter days, different exercises, shorter muscle lengths, focusing on contraction and feel and burn and pump, etc. And all of that still elevates muscle protein synthesis. Like, it still induces hypertrophy, but it's something from which you can recover really easily, both in terms of systemic fatigue and local fatigue, and then you can be fresh to then go back in. And in his case, he's someone who actually does the heavy deadlifts, heavy squats, etc. In my case, I've taken that concept and applied it to arm training, so I have the heavier, harder to recover from work on those upper days, because it's there anyway in the form of these other exercises. And then, after my lower days, what I do is I go in and I do exercises really emphasizing training these muscles at shorter muscle lengths. For example, with the triceps, an exercise I really like, which I actually got from Ben Bikulski, and by the way, I have no problem saying that. I'm quite open to picking up bits and pieces from anyone. And something he does is he'll take I can kind of demonstrate it here, but he'll put the shoulder joint, can you see this? Put the shoulder joint in hyperextension and then train the triceps here, the result is, for one thing, an extreme contraction, strong sensation in your triceps. Moving away from subjective feeling, you're training your triceps at a shorter length there because they cross the shoulder joint. And you're able to use really light loads. And so I'll do that, high reps, typically just one set really close to failure. And I'll do multiple exercises like that. And I deliberately, it's not all at the shortest possible muscle lengths, but I avoid anything that's working my biceps or triceps at, closer to the extreme of maximal length. So I won't do any overhead triceps work. I won't do biceps work with my shoulder hyperextended. And I emphasize higher reps. I emphasize exercises that, in my best judgment, are simply easier to recover from. So another interesting example, this isn't to do with exercise selection, but I will do just basic cambered bar curls after those lower days. But with high reps, and I don't use a full range of motion, I emphasize the upper 2/3 of the range of motion, because in my experience, the bottom third of the range of motion is hardest to recover from in terms of elbow tendonitis. I'm probably technically wrong about this, but simply biceps tendon pain resulting from it being under load closer to a full muscle length. So because if I use a full range of motion on that exercise and then I go and attempt to do heavy pull-up or something like this the following day, I really notice it. Whereas if I cut out that bottom third of the range of motion, there isn't that recovery issue, and I feel that in doing that, I'm hopefully sidestepping unnecessary injury risk. So as a result of this altogether, I tried to do the math in my head, probably about, probably 30 plus direct sets of arm work. So not counting bench press, not counting pull downs, etc. 30, and there's a little bit of variance here in terms of how I'm feeling, etc. But 30 or more high quality sets of direct arm work. And I think the quality part of it is important in that what I'm doing I don't feel is equivalent to going into the gym and doing 30 sets of arms in one session and leaving. Because in my experience, a lot of those sets are, for lack of a scientific term, just shit. Because you get to a point where you're so fatigued, you're so pumped, etc., you can still kind of move your arm, but again, in my experience, it doesn't feel as though you're actually inducing additional hypertrophic responses. And I've not seen any scientific evidence that I feel would even suggest that at least the sets later on in a workout like that are significantly increasing the response. Indeed, there might even be a drop-off, certainly in terms of marginal returns, but maybe in terms of total returns as well. Whereas if you take that and distribute it throughout a training week, every single one of those sets can be really effective, and that's something I've emphasized is I don't want any of the work I'm doing to just be throwaway work where, okay, I said I was going to do 4 sets of biceps today, so I'm doing a set and I feel nothing happening. I'm definitely moving a weight. I don't feel my biceps engaged at all. That kind of thing I've really emphasized avoiding. So altogether, a number of things change simultaneously, and I definitely don't feel this is a fantastic scientific study definitely indicating this approach is the means of maximizing your arm's hypertrophy. But I think what I can reasonably conclude is that this approach as a whole has worked extremely well for me in the short term to try to get back to where I was in terms of arm size. So I think that's a good place to stop. Let me know what you think of this approach. Thank you so much for your time. Like the video if you found it informative. Share it with someone who has small arms like me. 15-inch arms. It's freaky. All right, thanks so much, guys. I will see you next time.